Hello, I'm Damien Sheridan, CEO and co-founder of Scale, and I'm delighted to welcome you to this Pre-Scale UK 2025 webinar. Today's theme is about trust and accreditation and how this can support the UK short-term rental marketplace. Scale UK is happening this year in November in Manchester. We're delighted to have partners in both Visitor Ready and PASC UK. I'm going to introduce Alistair and Simon from both companies who are partners of the show. But just in case you haven't heard of Scale UK, it is for professional property managers across the UK, really designed to help them over the course of 2 days learn all about changes, patterns, trends happening in our industry, regulatory changes, most importantly, and how we can prepare ourselves for growth over the next coming few years. Anyway, back to today's webinar. Delighted to introduce Alistair Handyside, MBE of PASC UK, and Simon Numford of Visitor Ready. Alistair, I'll pass over to you if you'd like to just introduce yourself for a minute. Let us know about yourself and PASC.
Okay, first and foremost, I am a short-term rental operator, have been for 21 years. It's definitely in the blood. I set up PASC nearly 8 years ago to represent the sector, support it, and mitigate against government interventions into our sector.
Super. Thank you so much. Simon.
Hi, Damien. Simon Numford. I'm Managing Director of AA Media. I've been in hospitality my entire career. First of all, 10 years operation in hotels and restaurants. And for the last 26 years with the AA. And we run accreditation schemes across the UK and also operate the Visit England schemes under licence and our new Visitor Ready scheme. So excited to be on the call.
Super. Thank you so much for being sponsors and partners of our show this year. Simon, I'm going to stay with you. Something maybe a lot of operators across the UK in hospitality and short-term rentals, maybe they don't think of is the guest perspective of accreditation. So what I'd like to ask you is, why do you think that visible trust signals like accreditation are becoming essential? And it's almost a two-part question. And also, do you think it actually influences how they perceive and might book accommodations in our industry?
I think trust signs are incredibly important from the consumer point of view and are a lever for conversion and bookings as well. So I think that it's an incredible area of importance. I think it builds, first of all, consumer credibility. And I think that's really important. It assures, I think accreditation assures guests of their legitimacy, their genuineness. And I think that's really important. It gives a real essence of proof of your quality and safety, which is really important, particularly for a guest that's never been to your establishment before. I think importantly, it overcomes guest hesitation, because I think we're all wired as consumers to seek validation. And in a digital world where there is so much and there's so much choice, I think that plays an important part within that in terms of trust. I do think it leads to higher conversion rates and positive engagement with consumers, and also adds to a positive customer experience. And that's where I think the trend is going. It's all about the customer experience now. If you look at all of the trend analysis and all of the feedback, and that customer experience ultimately for me builds to loyalty. And that's why it's so important.
Super answer, yeah. Conversely, Alistair, we're talking about the hosts and what it means to hosts. How do you see that? How can you see what is the value that accreditation or being part of an association, for an example, what is the value that brings to hosts?
I'll talk about it from a host perspective and then from a PASC perspective, if I may. We didn't realise when we opened 21 years ago that you didn't need to be independently assessed, and discovered that journey. It surprised us that it wasn't a requirement. I'll make you laugh. The bat boxes we had to build were independently assessed by law for 4 years, but not the accommodation for human beings. So it's a bit odd, this wonderful country we live in. We have chosen to remain independently graded every year by Visit England, which is, as Simon says, is carried out by the AA. That gives us an independent verification of the property on top of the reviews we get and the guest feedback. These are people that go and view hundreds, maybe thousands of properties and are expert in their field. And we never don't have, even been operating for 21 years and perhaps thinking we might know a bit about it, we never don't come away with useful information from that. Also, the verification of the Visit England scheme requires us to be safe and legal, so they check our legal documents to make sure we are that. If we're not safe, we can't use the badge and we can't mark it. So for us, it's been an external accreditation. When we start looking at it from outwards to our guests, it's always been a positive. To be able to say that we're 5-star gold has unashamedly been absolutely beneficial to our business. If you imagine a website, Hire Wiscombe, which looks exactly the same as the other Hire Wiscombe website, one has got independent verification, 5-star gold and visitor ready, and the next one hasn't. You might think which the guest might be leaning to in when they're splitting the card deck at the end and making their choice. There are fine margins on what you get bookings. It's not all driven by price. This is a really important one to us, and we wouldn't be without it. From an association perspective, we've always tried to support the credible accreditation schemes. There are probably more accreditation schemes out there than you shake a stick at, but there are good ones, and I've mentioned the Visit England, the AA, and Visitor Ready. They're ones that we would absolutely support and endorse, and we will be doing webinars with Visitor Ready, and we'll probably cover why we may feel the need to do that at this time. But that's a really interesting one because that's coming from a safety perspective. And there's a lot of media, and we'll probably cover that, about are we an unregulated sector? I'll say, no, we're not. It's just some people aren't compliant. So it's a really good badge of compliance, which you can talk about in a really positive way to your guests and say, we care about you and we make sure this stuff is done. So from a perspective of an owner, I think it's a really important thing to do in this crazy Wild West that we currently live in short-term rentals. And from an association, we want to promote good practice and brand trust, and all of these things help develop all of those aspects of your independent business.
Wonderful. You mentioned media perception there a moment ago, and we know it's a difficult time in our industry. Short-term rentals specifically do get scapegoated for a number of things in modern society, be it noise, parties, whatever, you name it, they'll throw it at us. In terms of it being regulated or not, whatever that the perception might be in the media, how do you think associations or how might associations work to demonstrate the professionalism of our industry? And I can say I've stayed at a number of short-term rentals over the last year, and we do have a lot of work yet left to do. I stayed in a place in London 3 weeks ago, and we had one fork for 4 of us. So I think there is a lot of compliance and a lot of adaptability out there that we still need to achieve. But tell us how you think associations can help us get that trust and that professionalism out there to the right people and show what we're all about.
I think the way that we've always approached it at PASC UK is that if it's to do with safe and legal, that work is done free to all. You don't have to be a member to benefit from it. So we've taken a leading position on trying to get across in detail what fire compliance looks like, which has all changed dramatically over the last 2 years. We've done hundreds of hours of webinars. We've got free papers, free to use signage. Everything is available to everybody to understand what they need to do. I would have to say I agree with you. There's only a proportion of the sector that takes it seriously. Rush to get the bookings is more important than worrying about your duty of care or being a responsible person. This does bite people in the bottom, if I'm allowed to say that. When things go wrong, you're not insured, you've probably got the wrong mortgage, and then you're in a world of pain. Being compliant is not just being a goodie at school. You have a duty of care to your paying guests, and you should take that as your primary responsibility. And we just provide all of the support that we possibly can to enable the willing to do that. We're not a police force, we don't ostracize people or anything, but we provide the support to enable people to do that. This is why we've always fought for a sort of statutory registration scheme that would level that playing field so that everybody was safe and legal. But we'll probably come on to that later.
We will. Simon, I'll come back to you just looking ahead to, say, the next 3 to 5 years. What do you, in terms of accreditation, what's the biggest opportunity for our sector, the short-term rental industry and hospitality sector over that time in terms of accreditation and what it can do for us?
Yeah, I think as Alistair mentioned, the AA and visiting schemes have always been a voluntary basis. So we live and die on the support the industry gives us to our schemes. And I'm really pleased that over the last few years, despite the really strong headwinds, we've retained our schemes plus 90% every year. So that shows we've got a strong affection and a really good relationship with industry there. But I do think greater support of the accreditation schemes, whatever level people want to go in, whatever's best for them, can demonstrate that our industry is a leader in best practice, quality and welcome. And I think there's more realistic thing that the industry can drive in terms of actually saying that, look, we're a really professional industry, which large parts are anyway, and we're a good place to come and spend money and enjoy and make memories. And I think that's really important. And by doing so, a greater participation level, I think, will further enhance our reputation, not just on a domestic level, but on an international level, which is also another important factor when we're viewing the UK as a global destination and competing on a global stage. Really important. And I would hope that actually with stronger participation and demonstrating the industry is very compliant, which large parts are, we're less likely, I think, to have regulatory intervention and potentially further cost, as we can demonstrate to anybody, government, etc., that we already satisfy many of the basic requirements that people take for granted, which are not always in place, both from a regulatory point of view, but also importantly from a consumer perspective. And I think that's my hope for the future, that the support for the schemes grows and almost becomes a standard. I'd love it to be mandatory, and I think Alistair makes a really good point. I think we should have something that any business should go through, so that is a level playing field. So it's not just the good operators that have always done the right things. The whole industry does it as a minimum requirement. And I think that's what we should be aiming for as an industry.
Alistair, I'm sure you're itching to come in there on regulation. I know you're heavily involved here in the regulatory changes and really supporting our industry. How do you think that for operators listening to this today and watching, how being part of an association and getting accreditation, for example, with Visitor Ready, how can that help them with regulatory changes down the line and just being part of the voice?
Try and answer that in two parts. One is that if we don't get quite quickly in England, and of course it's going to be different in Wales, it's going to be different in Scotland. This is the nature of our fair island. It's so large that we have to have lots of different rules in different parts of it. If we don't get a simple statutory registration scheme in place, which is just the current levels of compliance that you have to have, and that doesn't prove to be effective, we are likely to deal with something much, much worse as a sector, much more intrusive and much more permissive. Statutory registration was always about, if you are compliant, you can continue to trade. When you get the word licensing in there, Damien, that means you're asking for permission to continue to trade. There is no subtle difference between the two. One is a scheme that we support because it would give the legal businesses the right to continue. One doesn't do that. You can be legally compliant, but they might just say, we don't want you. So that's why we're so very keen to get a sensible scheme, which is only asking you to prove that you've got the legal requirements you already have. We're not asking for anything extra. So that's part of the problem, the way that we are interpreted as a sector by government. They want it in one way to be light touch, but then suddenly when that doesn't work, guess which way the pendulum swings, and they go to ludicrously heavy touch and will penalise many of the people who do this. So I would urge as many to get to that current level of compliance, which is fire, gas, electrical, fundamentally. You should be able to do those. You're infecting your insurance and your mortgage. If you're not, it's like driving a car without an MOT. Why would you, really? We would recommend that they'll do, and we can help them as an association do that. And obviously the Visitor Ready is a perfect badge of honour of actually having got that far. It's really simple. I've done it. I've done Visitor Ready. It really did take 6 minutes. The tip is read, not like most blokes, read what you need to have ready in a folder, and it takes 6 minutes. Otherwise, you'll be scrabbling around for your fire risk assessment. But if you put them in a folder, it's 6 minutes, for goodness sake. And then you've got something else you can show. I think that we do need to press this forward to show that we're a sector willing to be compliant, that we don't need government intervention. We always were self-compliant, ironically, on a self-regulated basis before the OTAs came, because all of the what I might call the traditional agencies and the tourism bodies wouldn't advertise you if you weren't Visit England graded, which meant someone was checking your safety stuff. So we were originally a self-regulated. 95% of PASC agency members check their members' safety documents. It's the OTAs that need to come into line. That's why they've grown so well. They're now in a dominant position. They could join the club and they could really help this, which would help all of us, and in the long term would help them too.
Simon, if I could come back to you in terms of Visitor Ready and how a membership or accreditations have presumably increased over the last few years. Are you seeing that as a result of regulatory changes and the doubt that's coming into our industry? Or is there just a natural trajectory of accreditation and operators who join your scheme?
Yeah, I think from a quality perspective, that continues to be good organic growth. I think from Visitor Ready, we've built that slowly, in fairness, probably slower than I would hope, but it is definitely gaining momentum. And obviously, things like the discussions like this all help amplify the message. We took 2 years essentially to create the Visitor Ready mark and the scheme that underpins it. Actually learning from our learnings from our COVID confidence scheme, which we launched during that time. And I'd like to think we've come up with a really good scheme. As Alistair mentions, it's really easy to actually go through the process as long as you've got your documentation. And I think the key thing with Visitor Ready, it's an ongoing thing. And I think that's really important, because there's one thing is having your documentation and your certifications there, but it's actually maintaining that they're always in date and renewed. And we've created a lovely digital wallet as part of Visitor Ready. So once Alistair's put his documentations in, 3 months before each renewal due date, which will be different depending on 2-year renewal date, 1-year renewal date, etc., the system will automatically remind Alistair kindly to say, actually, by the way, your renewal's coming up and actually you need to renew it so you can stay compliant. And that's a real fundamental of the scheme, I think, because otherwise it's just, I've seen a document once, but it could have lapsed within the next 12 or 24 months. So that's why it's real time, and that's really important. We have made it free of charge. So there is no hidden cost at all. It requires a bit of time to go through it, and it's open to anybody in hospitality.
Amazing. Yeah, so to finish up, if you both have one message for any short-term rental operators out there who are considering joining either of your associations or accreditation organizations, what would it be moving forward? Alistair, I imagine you're probably going to tell people in Manchester anyway, but for those watching and listening to now, I'll come over to you. What's your message?
I think, use the support that's available at either nil cost or very low cost to get ahead of the game and be compliant. It's coming. It's going to get. We're hoping for a light touch registration scheme, but it's the one that's proposed is so light touch that they'll have to revisit it, and then they'll look at what's happening in Wales and Scotland and Ireland and in Europe, and then we really don't want that. So you've got to get ahead of the game, because it's only going to get more difficult to catch up. If you've got the documents, if you've got a fire risk assessment, you've got a gas certificate, you're supposed to have them by law, it's really not very difficult to prove using Visitor Ready that you've got them, and you could do that for free. I would say that you can get all of the online support from PASC, from the papers, for free on all of this. But if you want email support, and if you want voice support, and if you want to attend meetings and you want one-on-one calls, it does cost a princely sum of £90 plus VAT for a single owner to get that support. The barrier to entry to getting this right is so low, it's unbelievable. You've heard about Visitor Ready, you can do for free. All the fire support and all the gas support you can get, and electrical you can get from PASC for free. If you want to go to that extra line and help support that, you can pay a little. You can upgrade Visitor Ready and go on to rated trips, or you could become a member at PASC. And then you're supporting people that are trying to support you and help push your sector forward.
Amazing words. Simon?
My message would be encourage you to come and check Visitor Ready out on visitorready.com. As I mentioned, it's quick, it's easy, as Alice has demonstrated, and it's free of charge. There's no hidden hooks, etc. We do have an upgrade path if you wanted to be advertised based on a referral mechanism with our website, our consumer website, Rated Trips. It's going to cost you just over £100 a year, so you can have a full profile page, and we refer probably 18 to 20% of our traffic direct to our rated customers from that point of view. The Visitor Ready scheme is ongoing, as I said, real time, so you will remain compliant providing you keep updating your documentation, which again we've made really easy, so it's frictionless. So we appreciate how busy operators are and you don't have much extra time, so that's why we made it super simple but robust and credible, because all that documentation, even though it's online, it's checked by real people. And we have a team of people behind the scenes as well. So if you get stuck at any stage on the digital journey, you can pick up the phone and actually speak to a person. So that's really important to us as well. And as Alistair said, it's a good mark. VA is one of the most trusted brands in the UK. That's what we do. It's there for consumers. It's there for operators. It's a win-win in terms of showing to that visitor that you actually are compliant, and it's checked by an independent, extremely credible authority that's been in business for 120 years. So I think you can't get better than that for a free accreditation scheme.
Free and real people. That's a great message to end on. I'd just like to add to that in terms of trust. We are the second day of Scale. We're going to have our Book Direct show as well. And the theme of trust will be really important as part of that. And as a Book Direct advocate myself, I really see the benefit of being able to display associations and accreditations on your site. I think it's an absolute no-brainer. So I'd like to thank you both, Alistair and Simon, for joining me today. I look forward to hopefully seeing the both of you. I know we'll see you, Alistair, but we look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully in Manchester. So thanks so much for your time today, guys.
Thanks, Damien.
Yes.